Yeah, welcome back to my class again today. We are still going to continue along the path of introduction to C language. So what we have on the board now is C language. Now, to move in further, I just need to differentiate between the software and the hardware for you to see, and then show you where we are bringing in this language, because I really need you to understand at what layer is this language spoken, right? That is what I want you to see. So the first thing I'm going to look at is what? Hardware. The hardware. Then here I'm going to look at the software. All right. So this one, we have the CPU, which is the central processing unit. Then we have the hard drive, right? Then we have the memory, which is the RAM. And then here I'm also going to include the monitor, right? So I'm also going to include the monitor. On this side, we have one, we have the BIOS. Two, we have the drivers, right? Three, we have the OS, which is the operating system. And then four, we have the applications. Don't mind the uppercase and lowercase. All right, so this is what we have. Now, I want to explain the concept of C. I want to explain the concept of C to you in the form of a REM society, right? So I am going to consider this CPU as the what? The king, the main guy that is going to operate this guy. So I'm considering this CPU as the king. So conceptualize this. See the CPU as the king. Now, the hard drive. Now, see this hard drive as a permanent location, a permanent storage location. Now, see this memory as a temporary storage location. Example, like the Earth, so the landmass. Now, see this monitor as the world, that is the screen through which you see what is happening, the billboard. So your ability to see me is because of the screen. So the screen is what enables you to see me. It's different from the earth. So the earth is considered as the memory, which is a temporary location. So I needed to conceptualize it in that way. Now you see the king as the guy that is going to work on this temporary location using the materials that are in this permanent space storage, right? And then projecting it on the screen for every one of us to see. Now, the BIOS, looking at the software part, consider this BIOS as the birthright, the initial starting point of the king, what the king is expected to do. Consider this BIOS as that. Consider this driver as the messenger that is going to enable this guy, right, to communicate with this guy. Then consider this operating system as the government, which is what? The instruction that is going to be given to the king for the king to function. Now, consider this application as the task that the king is expected to perform in the society. So, Python language was actually used to create this side, which is the application. You can use it to create it. While this operating system is using the C language. So when C was created, C was originally created to write an operating system called Unix, right? Write an operating system called Unix. That was what C was originally created to do. Looking at that, I will now consider the whole of this, right? The whole of this as the what? The government. So which language does the government speak? So in this case now, we are going to look at this C. So we are going to use C to write an instruction that will be passed to the king for the king to operate in the realm. So looking at your body, this CPU acts as your brain, while the instruction that is coming is within your mind. You know, your thought are those applications. Now, there has to be a communication between this guy and this guy. So at this point now, right, we are looking at somebody to do the job. So when we are writing C, C is a high-level language with a low-level capability. What does that mean? This CPU does not understand the language that you are going to write C in. It doesn't. This CPU only understands 0 and 1. That is machine language. So that is the language in which he is going to use to communicate at this side. But you need to write your instruction in an English-like language, which is what? The C. So the C has somebody too in it. And that guy is called compiler. So what does this compiler do? The compiler takes the source code, which is that your instruction that you have written in an English-like language, and convert it to what? An object code. Now, C is a high-level language with a low-level capability. High-level in the sense that it creates an abstraction for you. It doesn't allow you to bother yourself with the 0 and 1. So it has an ability to convert that your English-like language to 0 and 1 for the CPU to start operating. So between your mind and your brain, there is something that is converting that your thought into a signal that your brain will use to send to control your physical body. That's what we are looking at. So the language we want to learn now, which is the C language, is the language that the government is using. So a language that we write that is spoken in this operating system. So example of an operating system is what? Unix or your Windows, like your Windows 10 or Windows 11, or your OS that you have on your phone. So we are looking at the language we are going to use to write this, and that is C. So, and I've told you that C has a compiler. So a compiler is to see what the CPU is to this hardware, and what an interpreter is to what? Is to Python. So in the case of Python, interpreter takes it line by line, interprets your code line by line. And then when data is needed, it will pull in the data at that point. But the compiler, what it does is that it takes your complete source code and converts it to an object code. Then at the point of execution, if there is data needed, it will now start bringing that data in, right? So in the next class, I'm going to show you the C structure. That is what I'm going to show you in the next class. Then you'll begin to see how we're moving into learning C language. So don't be scared. Anybody can learn C language. So we are going to demystify whatever it is that was looking so complex to you in this series. So don't miss this series. So till we see in the next class, bye-bye.